Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a UKAI special webinar this afternoon on cybersecurity and AI. So I'm Tim Flagg, I'm the CEO of UKAI, and it's really a privilege to be able to bring together a panel of experts on this topic, and I'll introduce you to them in just a moment. But this is one of those areas where I think over the last year in particular, we've seen as people have been adopting AI into organizations, that there's a growing understanding that that adoption has outpaced the ability to understand and take action on the risks of that adoption. And there's many challenges there. We talk to lots of businesses who know that they need to keep up, and that's a big urge for them to be moving quicker. But of course, when they're moving quickly, then of course they're leaving vulnerabilities and opening up some of those risks. So I'm really looking forward to getting into the detail of what can we do about that. As businesses, of course, the challenge with businesses is that we have many priorities, and where should the priority of risk be in all of those priorities that we have? So I wanted to introduce our panel today. If we have the next slide, please. We've got a fantastic panel who have come together to join us today on this topic, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute. But we have got different angles here, which will allow you, as our members, as businesses who are looking at how you're adopting AI, you'll be able to hear some many different perspectives on these approaches, and hear some case studies as well, and learn about what best practice looks like and what the code of conducts are. So if I could have the next slide, please, with the agenda. So this is what we're going to do today. This is the welcome. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to our panelists as well. I'm going to hand over to Darren in a minute, and he'll talk you through the main part of the presentation today, and introduce you to the panel in more detail. And then we've run a survey. So thank you to all of you who've signed up for this. You've also completed a short survey as part of that registration. We've also put out a wider survey with more detailed questions, and we'll be bringing the results of that survey into a bit of reflection to look at how this is actually impacting on your businesses, and that will then come back to the panel as well. And then there's going to be an opportunity for you to ask your questions at the end. So there's 15 minutes set aside at the end, so please do be thinking about what this means for your business and where you are on your journey to adopt AI and look at those risks around cybersecurity. That's really your opportunity to make it really relevant to your business, and we're really keen to hear from you and to hear your use cases, and then you've got the opportunity to get feedback from our panel of experts. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Darren Lewis, who's the Senior Innovation Lead at Plexal. Darren, over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Tim. And yeah, hi, welcome everybody to this webinar. Also super excited to speak to the different experts across different sectors within the industry. So first things first, yeah, as Tim says, my name's Darren. I'm from Plexal. Plexal are an innovation and growth company, and we work a lot with UK government on different emerging technologies and initiatives that we need to bolster UK activity and capability within. So let me just quickly first introduce you to something called LASR, which is the Laboratory for AI Security Research. Now, LASR is all about looking at both national security, both from a government and a critical national infrastructure perspective, but also economic growth for the UK and UK PLC. And we do this in a few different guises. So we look at this from an academic perspective. So for AI security, what are those core topics and challenges that may not even be thought of just yet? That the academic excellence that we've got as partners here, and you can see we've got University of Oxford, you've got Alan Turing Institute, we've got Queen's Belfast, and we engage with many other UK academic bodies to help solve some of those deep challenges. But we've also got what Plexal do particularly is to work on the commercial and innovation side and working with UK industry to understand what the demand is, what the challenges are that we're facing, particularly again across those critical national infrastructure sectors. As AI is adopted and that adoption grows exponentially, what are the things that we need to be considering throughout? And AI, of course, and cybersecurity of AI, we can think of in a few different guises. You can think of it as how do you bolster cybersecurity using AI? You can think of it as how are malicious bad actors using AI to enhance their capabilities? And that can be anything from, deep fakes videos to more advanced phishing and things like that. So there's lots of activity, but you might think, well, yes, that's enabled bedroom hackers and lowered the barrier for bad actors to do these activities. But actually, a lot of traditional cybersecurity might be able to deal with some of those challenges. But AI is different. AI is different to traditional cybersecurity needs. Traditional IT might be more deterministic. If you've got a certain set of code, you know when inputs go in, you can determine what those outputs are going to be. AI is different. It's probabilistic. You don't know a particular AI model might have the same input many different times, come out with many different results. And so you can't necessarily just assess the outputs and understand where that's starting to deviate from the norm. Likewise, you can't just look at the code because the code might be fine. It might be the inputs and the data going into it that then affects the weights and how the algorithm actually works within the model to then start to bias certain things. So AI is different, and we do need to consider it in slightly different ways. So I'm really excited because we have got a few different people on the panel today to speak to this. So we've got Izzy from Alan Turing Institute, we've got Louise from Oxford University, and we've also got Reese, who's representing UK government and sits within DSIT. So let me first introduce Dr. Louise Axon Jones, who's a research fellow at University of Oxford's Global Cybersecurity Capacity Centre. Louise.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Hi, everyone. So I'm Louise Axon. I'm a research fellow in the Global Cybersecurity Capacity Centre at Oxford. And our team are working as part of the LASR project on research into the cybersecurity of AI systems and exploring the kinds of challenges that this poses to businesses and to governments and defining actions that can be taken to mitigate against cybersecurity risks when adopting AI. So I'll give an overview of some of the key cybersecurity concerns that we've found businesses have when adopting AI and the kinds of actions that can be taken to mitigate that risk. And this is mostly based on insights from a report, which is on the screen, that we developed with the World Economic Forum, the AI and Cyber Balancing Risk and Rewards report, which was launched at the annual meeting in Davos last year. So in this report, we drew on insights from a network of CISOs and other business leaders across industries and regions. And we found a strong consensus emerging that when adopting AI, risk and reward really need to be balanced. So AI adoption's offering significant opportunities that businesses are seeing, but at the same time, AI system compromise can have serious business impacts, and there are certain capabilities that are needed to manage those risks. AI adoption matters from a cybersecurity perspective because it significantly expands or changes the attack surface through which an adopting organization might be compromised. And there are new models, new data flows, new dependencies, which introduce risks such as training data poisoning, model manipulation, supply chain vulnerabilities. And these are already real risks that are being seen. They're not just theoretical. So what the business leaders that we spoke to cared about were the potential business impacts of an organization's adopted AI systems being compromised. And there were concerns around the potential for reputational harm from malign or biased inputs and outputs, regulatory and compliance risks, operational disruption if AI-driven processes were to be interrupted or couldn't be trusted, all of those bringing potential risks of financial damage. There are best practices that can help to secure and ensure the resilience of AI systems, which we present in more detail in the report, but to highlight a few that were considered particularly important. Firstly, governance was key. So a wide range of stakeholders may need to be involved in managing the risks end to end within an organization, because these risks are wide reaching and many of them managing many of them may need to involve teams such as legal, cyber, compliance, ethics, relevant frontline business units. The risk touches a lot of areas of the organization. So that was a key point that came out. Secondly, the people we spoke to were very concerned that it's important that organizations are able to track how and where AI is being used within the organization and whether it's part of their mission critical supply chain. It was noted that keeping track of the risks that arise from the use of AI right across an organization can be really challenging because organizations are often adopting AI in different and fragmented ways. So we were hearing that unlike in the case of cloud adoption, where adoption by businesses was often primarily driven by the IT teams, in the case of AI, there's a lot of motivation from different teams and different individuals across the business to adopt and use AI because they're seeing different benefits. So that can mean tracking adoption within the organization can be harder, and therefore managing risks, including cyber risks, can be harder. Shadow AI related to that was another key concern. So shadow AI refers to when unrecognized or unsanctioned use of AI is happening within the organization, maybe through AI creeping in through features of off-the-shelf products or through use of AI by individual employees in their work. And this is a real concern. And IBM found in their cost of data breach report last year that more breaches and higher average breach costs were coming from shadow AI deployments than sanctioned ones. So managing these risks effectively really needs to start with knowing exactly where and how AI is being used. And thirdly, in terms of best practices, organizations need to be able to ensure that there's adequate investment in the essential cybersecurity controls needed to protect AI systems. And there was a lot of discussion about that needing to include pre-deployment security and security by design of these systems, but also post-deployment measures so that these systems can be monitored for potential breaches and the organization can ensure that it's ready to respond to and recover from disruptions. There's also a need for the kinds of people and process-based controls at the interface between the technology and the business operations. Those kinds of human checks on outputs are still seen as really valuable. And there are lots of resources on how security controls can help to protect adopted AI systems, including from DCIT, which we'll hear about shortly in the first global standard, and also guidelines from MITRE, the Atlas framework, NIST's taxonomy of adversarial AI, the OWASP AI security resources. So lots of resources around what are the main attacks or risks and what kinds of mitigations can help. We also explored how leaders' decision-making within businesses on AI adoption can be guided by security considerations and what kinds of questions can help to guide business leaders in assessing their strategies for AI adoption. Some of those questions included looking at whether the right risk tolerance for AI has been established and is understood by all those different risk owners within the business. Understanding whether risks are being weighed against rewards when new AI projects are considered. Having effective processes in place to govern and keep track of the deployment of AI projects, and looking at whether there are processes in place to ensure that AI deployments are consistent with the broader legal and regulatory obligations of the organization. So that was a kind of whistle-stop tour of some of the main findings from that report, which is available at the QR code on the screen. Hope it provides useful insights, and feel free to follow up in the chat with any reminders of resources. Thank you, and I'll hand over to the next speaker.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Louise. And yeah, like you say, I think a lot of what you just touched on we'll talk about later as well. So certainly the pre and post deployment sort of fit well within the code of practice that I'm sure Reese is going to talk about the different principles within that. So perfect, thank you very much. So next on to Isobel Thornton, who's Senior Data Scientist at the Alan Turing Institute on AI Security. Izzy.
Hiya, thanks Darren, and thanks for having me here. If we could move forward on the slide. Thank you. Yeah, so hi everybody. I've actually come from the Alan Turing Institute, and I'm a researcher here. Before I go into me, I thought I'd just give some background on what the Alan Turing Institute is and you know what we kind of do. So if you haven't heard of us, we are the UK's National Institute for Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. And primarily we have three kind of priority areas for our research. One of them being health and sustainability, one of them being, environment and sustainability, one of them being health, and the final one being defence and national security. So I've highlighted that one because that's where I'm coming from today. And my team in the Turing is all focused on AI security, and we work a lot with the LASR program. And unlike some of our other partners, the Turing is specifically like diving into the deep cyber AI security risks, and we kind of research like maybe your emerging models and technologies and the novel AI security approaches there. So we kind of span this fundamental research all the way up to creating practical tools, really proof of concept level tools that might be kind of the next generation of methods. Basically what we're going to do is understand how systems can fail and how they can be secured with hands-on testing. So we like to get hands-on with the AI models. I've got a few bullet points at the bottom of our broad research portfolio. The team's multidisciplinary, so we actually have a bunch of mathematicians and statisticians, as well as kind of software engineering resources too. So we do like to kind of combine some of the theoretical like approaches with the kind of hands-on creating tools. And the first question we kind of cover is like this idea of model robustness, which is looking at the model itself and understanding and creating methods for how we can measure the performance of these models. Are they behaving as expected, and what kind of novel things are emerging that can kind of cause a model to maybe misbehave. So this is kind of your adversarial robustness testing and kind of new and emerging vulnerabilities. And secondly, we also kind of look at more of the data security angle. So the question of AI security isn't just whether the model's behaving as expected, but it's also the data kind of either side of the model too. And in this case, we're kind of looking at privacy enhancing techniques on the data sets. So if you're training a model on potentially quite private data, is that data safe when it goes into the model? Are there ways of recovering it, and are there enhancing techniques that we can apply to the data to make sure it's private? I'd say all of this kind of stuff is quite early days at the moment, but it's really important because AI security is more than just the model. And finally, I just wanted to stress that we kind of look not just at large language models, which I know are kind of the big topic at the moment. That's what everyone's using, but our scope is much broader. So we have looked at multimodal models. So, models maybe using not necessarily text data, but speech, for example, is an area I'm particularly interested in. And also the emerging technologies. So agentic systems and also multi-agent systems is a topic that's emerging for us as a serious area that we need to look more at, because obviously the risks coming in those systems look a lot different to say a single agent system would. And finally, we haven't forgotten about computer vision. I feel like maybe the rest of AI security has, but we certainly haven't. It's still a fundamental system that is used. So we do look at it. So yeah, they're the kind of angles that we come from. Is the model secure? And also is the data secure? We kind of pull these together into prototypes and explore. So yeah, I think that's all from us.
Thank you very much, Izzy. Yeah, really appreciate it, and the breadth, I guess, of the activity that you look at is certainly impressive. So with that, yeah, can I please introduce Rhys Duncan, who's the AI Security Senior Policy Advisor within the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology in Government. Rhys.
Hi there. Thanks again for the invite to come along and chat about this area. So yes, I sit in the Cybersecurity and Digital Identity Directorate within DCIT. We have responsibility for multiple technology areas within our directorate, including software, including app stores, but my area of focus is around AI cybersecurity. In particular, we are focused on addressing the cybersecurity risks to AI models and systems themselves. There's a good chance you've heard of other areas of InDeCIT, such as the AI Security Institute, which is focused on a slightly different area of AI, in particular the threats from AI models and even the cyber defenses uses of AI models too. So with that said, our team got started quite a few years ago now, just before the Bletchley Park AI Safety Summit. And we've been very much focused on working with NCSC to address those cybersecurity risks to AI. What we did was we took the NCSC guidelines for secure AI system development, which we helped create, and created a UK code of practice based on that with the principles you can see on the screen now. What we've been doing since then is we ran a consultation back in the summer of 2024 to get feedback on this code of practice, which was extremely useful. With that feedback, we updated it. We created a new principle, which you see at the bottom there, around the use of end-of-life model, around the end of life of models. And what we found was that people wanted guidance on how to actually implement this code of practice. So we published a accompanying implementation guide to go along with it, which sets out 4 use cases of how to actually implement the code of practice in the use case examples of an AI chatbot, LLM, machine learning, and an open source model. From there, and what we set out within the consultation was our ambition to take this UK code of practice into a global standards development body to be developed further. And we did that. We took it into ETSI, and that has now been published as a fully fledged EN standard, EN 304223. What it does, like the UK Code of Practice, is that it sets out baseline security requirements for AI systems, and it mirrors the ones you're seeing on screen here as well. How it works is, as the standard is developed within ETSI, we update the UK Code of Practice so they both match, and if you're following one, you're essentially following the other two. In terms of scope, this is a baseline standard, so it encompasses all AI systems. So that includes different tools, models, and technologies, and it looks across the entire life cycle of an AI model and system. In terms of our own scope, we are looking at the entire AI supply chain too, but we do place particular focus on developers and deployers, which you can sort of see from the code of practice language and the standard language itself too. What we're doing now this has been published as of last month, is that we're thinking about what comes next. So we're thinking about those levers which might be needed to support industry adoption of AI security. And that is sort of where we find ourselves and trying to figure out, okay, how best we can help industry. We ran a whole range of workshops, got some feedback, and are now thinking that through of how to take that forward and what that might look like. What we're also working on within ETSI, the next part, is a conformance assessment, which is set to be published hopefully sometime summer 2020, sometime in summer. With that, it will provide sort of an opportunity for people to attest models and systems, the AI models and systems, to the standard and use that accordingly. We also help, of course, it will help the assurance and certification industry as well. In terms of the principles, I probably won't run through them all in detail, but those are the 13 on screen. So why they're so important for us is that, you know, we wanted to create international alignment on minimum security requirements, and that's what the standard is looking to achieve. It also acts as a differentiator for AI developers. So in particular, we're hoping developers use this throughout their processes and use that as a selling point, that they're taking security seriously, that they've implemented the standard, and that is why you should buy their product. Of course, we're also hoping it will help the assurance and certification industry, as already mentioned, but also it's useful because it maps the principles to other international industry publications. So again, creating that international alignment. And I think I will stop there as a quick whistle-stop tour of everything we've been doing.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Reese, thank you ever so much. And again, thank you for being here. Again, I think we'll probably delve into to some of this through other questions as well, because I think the principles, as you say, it sort of aligns to some of the things that Louise was saying earlier about the pre and post deployment. It's not all about the development. It's actually about operationally, how do you monitor, observe these activities, and like you say, end of life too. So fantastic. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to more of an open panel discussion. But before I do, um, everybody on the call who registered, I want to say again a big thank you to Tim and to UKAI to allow us to engage with this community, because you guys all answered a couple of different questions when you first registered. And so I'm just going to briefly run through the results of those 4 questions, which were: so how would you rate out of 5 your overall AI adoption confidence? And actually, it seems very high. So when I've looked at these sorts of stats from other specific industries, for instance, they don't often seem as high as this. So I think overall confidence across this community is good, which is nothing but a positive thing. Second question, relative AI security maturity, bit of a mouthful. Again, it's seen as very good. So again, I guess a bit more skewed in terms of results, but still weighted generally 3 and onwards. So yeah, again, probably more than I originally expected. Security as an adoption constraint. So how much is security holding back the AI adoption within a company? So I guess we'd expect to see this on the 1 to 3 side if people were particularly confident. But it does seem that security is is a constraint for AI adoption. And I guess again, it's reasonable to consider that to be the case. And then the final question, which is slightly different to the others, is how would you rate your employee understanding of AI security risks? So this aligns particularly to Principle 1, I think, in Code of Practice, Reese, for DSIT. And again, this is very spread, I guess, across the different results. So yeah, interesting to see, though, again, still a reasonable level of confidence in employee understanding. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing slides for a second, and I'm going to ask the panelists some questions related to both the results and some of the things that you guys have just been speaking about. So the first question I'm going to ask is, in terms of confidence and driving confidence in AI adoption and rollout, besides cybersecurity, are there other factors that you think play a particular role that are maybe linked to it, but not cybersecurity as we traditionally know it? And I guess if I can come to Louise first, to have a thought on that.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. So I think we all know AI can be hugely beneficial to businesses, and so picking up on those survey results, we don't want it to become a security or other risks to become a kind of adoption constraint. And it's about finding ways of adopting while being confident that those risks have been mitigated. The main approach that I wanted to pick up on is the kind of knowing that there is insight and good governance of AI projects and usage across the business as a way to driving confidence. And I think in all our research, we've found that there's a sense that when there's a sense that there may be unknown or unmanaged risks within the company, it creates really big risks and concerns and nervousness. During our interviews for the risks and rewards report, which I showed before, I remember CISOs saying essentially they want within the organization people to at least just tell them if they're going to implement some AI so that they can have some idea of the kinds of risks that need to be managed. And obviously that's the cyber risk angle, but there are other negative impacts of AI that's misused in other risk areas, like regulatory fines, legal implications, potential ethical implications of biased or misused AI. The bottom line being that those sorts of incidents can lead to financial harms and reputational harms. So there are concerns across those areas of the businesses about where AI projects might be springing up and what risks they might be bringing that aren't possibly properly governed yet. So I think understanding where the risks are is a really key way to driving confidence by being able to make informed decisions about AI adoption that is recognized based on considering potential rewards against risks, that being not only cybersecurity risks, but the other various areas of organizational risk that AI adoption implicates. And I think there are ways that, or approaches that can be used to support mitigating those risks across the business. Employee education, employee awareness was brought up in the survey, but ensuring that there's understanding of the risks that AI adoption might present, and therefore of the kinds of processes that need to be followed to ensure that when AI is adopted it or used by an employee, it meets the kind of risk tolerance of the business. And I think another one that we've heard a lot about is knowing that not all risks can be totally mitigated from the outset when adopting AI, planning and exercising on the resilience side. So knowing what happens and knowing that stakeholders across the organization know what happens if there's a breach or an AI output that is malign or biased and brings regulatory harm. Do the relevant stakeholders across the business know how to respond and limit the kinds of harm that results? So I think that helps bring confidence that as AI is rolled out within the business, there's kind of muscle memory in place within the organization to manage the kinds of incidents that might arise and limit their harm.
Yeah, no, I think if I could come in, Louise, I think interestingly, I was recently with a cyber team of a multinational, and we talked about a scenario where a model's behavior was drifting away from the norm, and it could be because the data that was it was maliciously being biased towards a certain direction. And the cyber team said that's not us, because we'll make it secure. So there'll be another team that would need to look at that. And it was interesting because to your point, I think without having an overarching governance structure that considers all of the different teams, it might be that happens a lot where just individual parts of a company say, well, that's my traditional way of working is I'm cyber, I'll secure that system and the code, but the behavior of it is not really my remit.
Yeah, and I think that's something that AI has brought, that kind of some slightly blurry kind of areas of accountability, I guess, for businesses. And also we've been doing a lot of work at the national level, so government's AI cybersecurity concerns. And at that level too, there are areas like deepfakes where it's not totally clear whether that always, for all nations, falls within the remit of cybersecurity, but it's not necessarily clear where it does fall. So I think there are areas that AI has brought where maybe accountability is not always clear and there might be risks that fall through the cracks.
Yeah. And I guess, Izzy, Reese, any thoughts on this? I know, Izzy, you're working on model drift, I guess, as one of the things that you focus on.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of touches on what we've been saying. Like, you can't inherently know or secure a model. It's just not how it works. Like these models, like what is a good behavior and expected behavior, it becomes extremely hard to define. Like just because someone's jailbreaking it, sure, like is that malicious, or is that actually just the user using it like badly? So there's kind of a distinction between like trusting that the model is secure, but also that like really it's the human use of AI, and do we trust that the human is using the AI in a correct and secure way? So I think they are kind of two questions. And like on the security of the model and the system, I think we're quite far away from being able to say like we have total control and over like we expect the model to behave in a certain way. But I think on the kind of human side and the trust in how the human use it, like that's kind of where we can build in.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess, just on the same question, Reese, is that so within the code of practice, I know Louise also touched upon some of the employee education piece, but is there where would that be dealt with in terms of the different types of teams and the ways that organizations holistically have to deal with these types of activities.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like when it comes to expected behavior, we do have a principle in there around that, and that's principle 12, I believe. So it really talks about sort of having good logging practices, making sure you're analyzing those logs accordingly, and then basically ensuring you are monitoring the performance of the models to try and catch out to see if there is those sudden changes, those gradual drifts, to see if there's anything you can do to correct it accordingly. That, and of course, how then it could be affecting security. Doing that next step of analysis, thinking, okay, it's drifting now. So what? What does that mean? Does that change the risk profile at all? Is it something that we need to address immediately? What's the risk profile of it?
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, it's the continual observability of not just the code and the data being used, but actually the outputs, the outcomes of the AI use. Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. So I'll go on to another question, which is why don't more companies? So we saw from the survey results that actually there was a reasonable level of assurance, I guess, around the security of AI as they've adopted it. But how can we increase that even more? So are there factors that we can that we think actually will help them even above the current high levels within UKAI? I guess Izzy, if you're happy to take that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was a little bit surprised with the kind of like level of confidence in the AI security. I think maybe I'm negatively biased in that security maybe isn't all solved. Because what I was gonna say to this is that actually I don't know. I feel like companies who are feeling more reserved in their confidence in AI security are quite rightly so like reserved, because I mean, as we've said multiple times, like it's extremely hard to kind of put a sticker on something to say like, yes, this model was secure. So naturally, there's going to be these elements of risk, and linked with what I was kind of just saying about the like, it's more around that how does the user understand what model or AI that they're talking to, and like what data feeds that model is being exposed to. I think that's a hidden one. You might have kind of some system that is using data, say from your emails or from your I don't know, document store that you might not realize is actually being integrated into the AI security, like as a user, into the AI system. But actually it is, and that is kind of a vector in itself for bad actors. So I think it's that education piece around like, does the user know what AI system it's talking to, what that AI is supposed to be doing, and also what data feeds are feeding into that system, that is really important.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And again, in some of the discussions we've had with different parts of industry, AI creep is the phrase where existing solution providers services are with the new updates are just increasing the use or introducing the use of AI. And it's not necessarily a default opt-in. It slowly just gets brought in. And so to your point, Izzy, I guess, they don't necessarily know as users. We don't know as users that that's going to be the case.
No, you don't. I mean, on a more specific example, like you download VS Code, you get the Copilot plugin, and there we go. It's like Copilot, an AI system. God knows, like where this AI is, has access to your repository, your software repository, and it can interact with you. You can help you write code. It's really beneficial, but there's that kind of like almost one step removed, because you might be familiar with the VS Code, for example, interface. You don't quite realize there's actually this AI component to it too.
So it's definitely an assurance level on that, and I guess broadening it out a little bit. I guess Louise, we did a piece of work between Plexal and yourselves on the supply chain piece. And I wonder if actually the provenance of some of these models and things also has an impact, where if people are unaware of where things have been trained or yeah, you're as a user, again, you might not be completely aware of where this sits as an AI tool. Is there a provenance or a supply chain consideration within this that would help build security or confidence in security?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, as we've been saying, there are measures you can take within the organization to become more confident in the security. But I think part of the reason why it can be challenging for an organization to be confident that they've really adopted AI securely is it often involves a lot of third-party provision, or, like you said, Darren, training data that may have come from somewhere else, or models that have come from somewhere else, whether trained or pre-trained or to be trained within the organization, or AI being provided through service providers. So there's quite a complex set of ways that AI might be adopted in different parts of the supply chain. So I think understanding what that supply chain is and being able to gain assurance that it is secure is important towards becoming confident that it's been adopted securely. I think there are practical steps that can be taken now that many organizations already take around existing supply chain security assurance approaches. It's not that different necessarily to using tooling to map and track security of vendors, non-AI, and having those kinds of cybersecurity requirements in contracts that have already been around before we started worrying about AI supply chains. But I think there are some questions specific to the structure and the dynamics of the AI supply chain. Again, the fact that there's training data to consider, there's service providers to consider. That means there's more research needed to ensure the right security measures can be taken. And like Darren said, we've done some work together to try and map out what the AI supply chain actually looks like and where businesses think risks are emerging, how responsibilities might need to be distributed. And we heard a lot there about lack of visibility and clear ownership in some areas where third-party services are provided, or where open source components are being integrated into platforms that are provided to customers. So some challenges around assurance and oversight. There are other areas that we've been looking at and that are being discussed kind of broadly in the policy community around using bills of materials for AI, so extending software bills of materials to work and to consider AI supply chains. Yeah, I think it's an area where there's existing practice that can be used, but there are also kind of open questions that are being figured out now.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, hopefully that white paper that we've written will be available shortly. So yeah, if people are interested, we'll be able to get that out to the UK AI community. So Reese, actually, so I know securing the supply chain is one of the principles again within the code of practice. So yeah, it's very very pertinent to yourself and to DCIT and that's covered. But I wanted to actually maybe broaden it to the last survey question, which was more around employee awareness, and we touched upon it again since, but awareness and understanding, I guess, of the AI security risks. We've run workshops where this has been called out as probably the biggest deficit in what's required across all of the different principles. Do you have any thoughts on that? But also, is there like practical advice and guidance maybe on what that could and should look like?
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good question. And you're totally right in the fact that it is first and foremost principle one within the standing and the code of practice accordingly. It's in terms of practical guidance that's out there. It's sort of early days, I think, in terms of what's out there. But it's important from our perspective that you're thinking about what your current cybersecurity training program is, and then in making sure that includes AI security content now, making sure that's regularly reviewed, making sure that gets updated accordingly if there's any sort of substantial AI related security threats that begin to emerge. Again, it's one of those things that needs a bit more research. It's a bit early days. AI perhaps hasn't had its WannaCry or Mirai botnet moment yet, That's not to say it won't happen, but it's making sure those training programs are robust as soon as they can be. And importantly for me, I think the most important for me, although I probably shouldn't choose a favorite within it, is making sure those training programs are tailored accordingly to the role and responsibilities of who is undertaking the training or your staff. Someone who is perhaps developing on your back end versus someone who is in HR are going to have very different risk profiles, and therefore the training should reflect that accordingly. One being perhaps vibe coding is perhaps there's a bit more training needed on that versus consideration around data compared to the two different staff members. So I think that's probably something that's quite vital as well. But generally speaking, making sure staff maintain awareness of latest security threats as well, getting that information in front of them by sort of all methods available to an organization, your forums, your staff postings, etc., emails, tests, anything you can use really, getting the information in front of them, and then of course including what they can be doing to mitigate any potential threats, thinking about what they're using, thinking about what plugins they're installing on top of Copilot or ChatGPT, whatever they may be using, accordingly.
Perfect. And I'm going to come to Louise and Izzy and just and ask if you guys have got any particular thoughts. But just a reminder to people on the call, if you do have any other questions that we haven't maybe addressed that you're particularly keen to ask, please do put them in the chat, and we'll try and pick them up as we go through. But yeah, Louise, Izzy, any particular thoughts on on how best to engage employees to know what the latest threats are?
Oh, shall I go first? The only thing that I was gonna add is whether they're, the new emergent threats is like kind of a constant battle, right? That's kind of what we're doing here in Turing, is to kind of understand that. And it's challenging and it's time consuming. I think there's maybe an element of education around, like, more fundamentally what AI is that might be beneficial to we don't have to go into like the depths of neural networks, but it might be beneficial for employees to have somewhat of an appreciation of what these systems are. I think that would be really important. And I also feel like AI threats is maybe coming into the news quite a bit more, like especially this year. We've seen with Grok the disinformation deepfakes. I think maybe it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. So I'd guess I'd urge to kind of keep open to the news and the AI in the news.
And I guess and as you say, there's the threats that we see coming in, and actually they may be enhanced versions of what we've maybe seen before. So there's deep fakes coming in. There's particularly advanced phishing attacks and things. So those, to be aware of those, because AI is enhancing bad actors and their capabilities. And then there's and also if you're thinking about using AI in your division or as a user in a company, what does that actually mean in terms of the security of the data that you are then providing into that AI model? So there's I guess there's those two different angles, right?
Yeah, I think something else that's just come to mind is that these, like the big companies creating the large language models, Anthropic in particular, are starting to kind of release their insights. So I don't know if that was necessarily the trend before, but certainly maybe going forward, we can see from these companies themselves like some of the threats. So maybe for the more security teams, like to keep eyes peeled on what Anthropic and OpenAI and Microsoft are kind of publishing in this space, because I think it's coming. Like we've had one report at the end of last year, which was really insightful.
Yeah, perfect. And Louise, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think kind of picking up on points from before, and I know Izzy mentioned it's not just securing AI, it's making sure that humans are using AI securely a lot of the time. It's kind of important that we can educate employees to be smart users of AI, which again I think involves a bit more understanding understanding of what AI, and especially Gen AI at the moment, is and what its limitations are, so that it's so that employees have the kind of ability to be that buffer between an output and a business decision and critique its outputs, and not kind of blindly trust the outputs of AI. So I think that's an important area of employee education. I think the other thing that we've found through our research is that if we look at case studies of attacks on AI systems, they almost always involve multiple kind of traditional cybersecurity attack dimensions as well. Like phishing for credentials might be the initial access point. So I think it's for securing AI, educating employees around basic cybersecurity hygiene is still kind of a massive component.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I guess I will come across to Tim to just I can't see the questions that may have come in. So
Yeah, just got a few.
Okay, fantastic. Did you want to pose any?
Yeah, no, I'd like to put some just a thought from me as well. It was really good to hear the panel's emphasis on education there. I've been scribbling down some notes there, but I think the main thing for me is trying to define what AI is, and this is a massive problem for the industry because it means so many different things to so many people, and it can mean everything. But within AI, as you've been articulating, some of those component parts, some of those areas, agentic, there are much higher risks in some areas than there are in other parts, which might be more just about automation, workflow management, databases, etc. So I think exactly as both Louise and Isobel picked up on, education is really key, which is why we're so excited to have all of you here to help our members. And just a related thought, I think on the confidence level, I was also surprised with the high levels of confidence there, but I think it kind of reflects both the membership, the audience of UKAI, and it's kind of self-selecting group almost, in that this was a quite specific webinar, but yeah, good to see. But I'm also keen to kind of reiterate to our members that they need to, however confident they feel their organisation is, there's always more to learn, and we will need to be on that learning journey. But let me dive into some of the questions. I've got a question from John Asquith to Reese. He said, are these standards being mandated across government? And how do you get visibility or reporting on whether they are being adopted? And are they covered by the algorithmic transparency reporting standards? Actually, that's something that's been coming up a lot recently. But Reese.
Thank you. And thank you, John, for a very, very good question. It's so good. In fact, I may not be able to answer it fully because for how we're structured is that essentially any responsibility for mandating would sit in a different area, in particular the government digital service team, who I work very closely with. We've been having conversations about the standard. They're very well aware of it, and we're thinking about what really comes next in terms of the standard within government. So I can't exactly comment on the visibility and reporting processes they have. Equally, the ATRS is an interesting one because I don't want to say either way, but I know it is mandated across all government departments for usage. Whether it would apply to the standard, I'm not wholly sure, however. So sorry, I can't be a bit more detailed on this question. It's a very good question, and it's something that essentially active discussions are on and around.
Brilliant. Thank you, Reese. And it's actually something that John and I have been discussing offline anyway. So I think we're also thinking about, is there a way we could do a follow-up webinar? Because I know John and Clarice have been sort of working in this space. So maybe there's something we can plan in the future there as well. Great. Okay. So Badri has asked, with the rise of agentic AI adoption within businesses, how do we tackle the risks around memory poisoning? Also, what about cascading failures in multi-agent systems? So getting quite into the weeds there in the agentic threats, but I think that would be a really interesting one if we got some answers for that.
I do, but unfortunately you won't like it. So yeah, no, it's a really, really good question and also really important. These cascading failures in agentic systems, particularly in like multi-agent systems, is an area that we are looking into, but unfortunately we don't actually have any advice because it's super like it's happening now. We're working at the level it's being deployed, like we're securing at the same time. So I guess if this webinar was this time next year, maybe we'd have some advice, but it is certainly on our radar and something we're looking into. So yeah, that's all I can say on it, I'm afraid.
Great, thank you.
And Tim, just to add as well, I think so. They're the sort of risks that again come out that are different to traditional cybersecurity. So you wouldn't normally have to worry about memory within an agentic platform. Within a particular cybersecurity system. These are the things that, again, as Izzy said, there is active research going on. And again, I guess I'll give a plea for people to consider looking into the LASR program, the Laboratory for AI Security Research within the UK, because as research happens, as we're able to publish different solutions, or solutions is a grand term, but certainly some thoughts and advice on particular things, we can put it onto that LASR portal. So please, do consider looking on there.
Brilliant, thank you. And that's why it's great to have this partnership, because we could do more of these in the future where we can come back and update on exactly these points. But I think it's actually a really good example of how fast the technology is accelerating. And Badri, I know, is very much working in this space and kind of being pioneering this space. But it's right at the cutting edge there. But how do businesses manage to keep up with those threats when we're still having to kind of figure out how the technology works? Actually, following on from that, as I think specifically a question for Isobel, David has asked, how can we work with the Turing Institute? And he's saying we can bring an RTO grant from Innovate UK or other grant funding. And he's interested in countering AI-based threats such as obfuscated malware. So quite, so a technical question, but I think interested in seeing if there's opportunities to work with you, maybe.
Yeah, I would guess. I personally am not the partnerships team, but we are always open to seeing working with new people. So I don't know if you can share email addresses maybe, but it might be, we pass that on, we can sort it out. But we're partnered all over the place. We have specifically not in the academic community, but we are open to kind of more the industrial, commercial partnerships too. So it's something that we would like to do. For sure.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, we'll follow up and connect you offline with David. And great, excellent. Well, I'll wrap up in a minute, but Darren, I'll pass back over to you for some final thoughts as we wrap up.
Yeah, no, I just want to, I guess, finish with a huge thank you to everybody that's attended. Hope it's been informative, and there are elements of AI security that you maybe hadn't thought of, or maybe this has given you a little bit of a guidance towards, or some of the collateral that you can maybe look at to find out more. Again, please do look into the Laboratory for AI Security Research and the initiatives we're doing there, because there's lots of opportunities to get involved either as a industry member who's interested in adopting AI or somebody who's developing AI. Lots of different programs. And just to say a huge thank you to UKAI for partnering with us on this and to enable us to engage with your audience.
Well, thank you very much. And it has been a real pleasure to have all of you panelists here with sharing your experience and your expertise with our audience. It's such an important area, and there's a real sort of need for these conversations, this education, and an ongoing process here. So thank you for making the time to join us. This is very much just the beginning of the process for us. So we're actually planning a more in-depth workshop, face-to-face workshop, which we're hoping to do beginning of March with LASR as well, where we're going to really get into the details. So there'll be further information coming around about that. And within UKAI more broadly, this is an area which touches upon a lot of the areas we're working in, such as sovereignty and AI, and broader questions around cybersecurity as well. So we've got a number of events planned later in the year on this as well, which we'd love to get people involved with as well. So that's it really. We're at time now. So thank you again to our amazing panel for spending time with us this afternoon. And thank you to our audience, and look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you.